Hello, welcome to demonstration 4. Today I will be working with a purple Dendrobium orchid. Now this was the original picture that I came up with, and this is the original tracing. And it was pretty complex. What I'm going to do today is work with some pearlescent paint. So I'm going to simplify this design just for the demonstration. And this is basically straight painting. It's just your violet mixed with a little permanent magenta, and then we had a simple background, and this darker area here, the shadowing, is simply just a less diluted bit of paint, bit of violet. So we're going to work with the pearlescent paints, and I'm anxious to get started with that. So we'll have a simplified design. Last year I had a chance to buy a smaller container of this fine-tech pearlescent paint, and I had a lot of fun using that, making greeting cards. Some beautiful metallic colors. They're made in Germany, and the pearlescence comes from some ground mica that's in them. So this year I had a chance to buy another set with some different colors, and you can see a pretty wide range here of 12 different colors. So this is what we're going to be working with today. The first example was something we looked briefly at during the last video, and that was a combination of using regular watercolor paint with the pearlescent colors. So in this instance, you can see a difference in the brilliance. It's a little bit of a subtle difference here of the colors. I used a combination of the carbazole violet and the permanent magenta with this amethyst color, and then I had a little bit of the sky blue mixed with pearl silver, and here just a touch of lemon yellow with the crystal gold. And we had here the mystic, which is an interesting color, mixed with some burnt umber, and then the couple of green stems, which were the Caribbean green here, mixed with some sap green. But you can see that the pearlescence is not that brilliant. It's kind of a subtle look, but I do like it, and you still get a lot of color to the painting. Now, I did another one on just cold press paper, just white 140-pound cold press paper with only the pearlescent paint. This is interesting because the color is a little distorted. I don't know if you can tell that on camera, but this is the straight amethyst color here, and then this is actually purple. So you have sort of a grayish look to this amethyst on white paper, and then the purple has actually a bit of a reddish glow to it. And then this background is pearl gold. Of course, I only did the top bloom, and eventually I'll finish this bottom bloom. But you can see a pretty big difference, let me get this one, in the look. Now, it also depends on the angle that you look at it, because at some angles this looks gray, and other angles you can really see the purple. So I decided I wasn't too excited about this dull purple color, so I decided to try this design on a piece of black Stonehenge paper, and it comes in a pad. So I removed a piece of this paper from the pad and taped it onto a board. I hope you can see this on camera. This is a big difference here. So this is quite an effect. You can really see the purple on the black paper. So I did the bottom bloom, and for the demonstration I'm going to finish out this top bloom. I had a little bit of a problem when I went to trace it. For example, usually I'll put the graphite tracing paper in between these and transfer it in pencil, but the pencil was really hard to see, so I know that you wouldn't be able to see it, so I had a little bit of problem solving to do. And what I decided to do was make a piece of white transfer paper. So I got one of my Caran d'Ache white watercolor pencils, and I took it sideways and went over as hard as I could and as thoroughly as I could. Then I went this way, and then I did it a third time diagonally. And I only needed about part of a sheet. So then I put that down, and I went and traced this with pencil, with a hard pencil, and it worked. So I was really happy about that, because I do like this black paper. So that's how I solved that problem, by making a piece of white transfer paper. Now on this one, I used just the straight pearlescent colors. We had the amethyst, we had the mystic color here for the stake, and the Caribbean green for the stems, and I used a little bit of this purple. This is the amethyst, and this is the purple for the magenta color, the reddish color that I needed. And this background, instead of using the pearl gold, I used this crystal gold, which is really got a nice fluorescence to it. And the only other thing that was different was that where I need, and I need to do a little bit more work on this part, I think, but where I need the darker shadows, I went ahead, I normally don't use black, but I went ahead and used some of this black. It's to try to get some of these darker areas that I needed. So we will get started and finish up this top flower with only the pearlescent paint on the black paper. Just a couple of tips before we get started. I set aside a couple of brushes that I don't use quite as often, and those I use for the pearlescent paint, because if I do a painting after this with regular watercolor, sometimes I don't get all of the pearlescence washed out of the brushes. So I have a separate bunch of brushes that I use for the pearlescent paint, and even a different water bucket. I have a little P marked on the bottom of it, because it's so easy for that pearlescence to get transferred to other things. So I just use a separate water bucket and separate brushes. And also, these dry out fairly fast, so I use an eyedropper to keep them hydrated. So I'm going to put down some purple first. This is going to take the place of the permanent magenta that I used in the other painting. You need to mix it up a little bit. It's just going to be an underlayer. If you find that it's going on too thick, you can add some water to it. I like to let it dry before I put the next layer on, but it's not absolutely necessary if you want it to blend. I'll have to turn it. To get it to spread real well, you really need to keep it nice and wet. Now I'm going to go over to just the amethyst color. Now I didn't let that totally dry. They're touching up against each other. It doesn't run quite as badly as the regular watercolor paint when you have two wet edges and they run together. This doesn't run quite as badly, so I have a little bit there, but that's okay because I'm going to cover that with amethyst next anyway. I leave a little bit of a black border. Now to get the darker colors on here, instead of using the black, you could leave some of the black paper to show through instead. I'll try that sometime. Starting to dry out on me already, so I need to keep adding water to it. Now on the reference photo, there are a couple of petals that show on the back side, and they're very pale. So I did one here. I'm still practicing to see how I will get that effect, but I'm going to try the pearl silver first, a layer of pearl silver, and then I'm going to try to put some amethyst on top of that, just a little bit. So I'll go ahead and do that. Takes a minute to get it to soften up. Put some Caribbean green on the stem. There's another little stem right here. I want that to be a little bit lighter if I can. A little too light. We're kind of fixed with the colors that we have when we just use this. We don't have that many shades of green. There's one more. Let's see. No, that's gold. All right. I'm going to try to do a paler, maybe a mix. Some of this and the amethyst. I'm trying not to mix the colors in these little pans here. Boy, that comes out gray. But it works. I just wanted a lighter shade of the purple or the amethyst. Now I'll go over this purple with the amethyst. Should be dry enough. And let's see if I can put some accents on these lighter areas. See if it works. They're not completely dry and they're mixing, so I'm just going to try to wipe off most of the silver paints because I don't want it to get too much of it in this purple or this amethyst. I just want to keep calling it purple. Let's try some of the Mystic. It's not that much different than the Caribbean green, so on this one it's going to look a little greener. I don't have any brown to mix up with it. See, it looks very similar to the Caribbean green. However, when you hold it at a certain angle, it has almost a bicolor to it. See, that's drying out. You can't let it sit around too long. You'll just have to keep adding water to it. going to switch over to the crystal gold now. Just put a little bit in the middle. I need to let some of these parts dry. Let's try a little bit of the background. So we want to go to, actually I used the wrong one, that's all right. We'll mix it up with some of that. This is the crystal gold. You notice I'm not wetting the paper first, but to get this to spread out, I'm going to start more concentrated toward the center and just work my way out with some water. That sure is pretty. It appears you don't have to worry so much about lines forming when you're doing your background either, because this blends pretty well. I did this the other day, so it's dry, and I see a little bit of a line there. I could probably smooth that out. I'll have to let that dry just a little bit right here before I finish that off. Let's let it dry for just a few minutes. I've done just a couple of things and just a few more details to finish up. I added a little bit of black here in the bottom flower with the throat, trying to make it a little darker, and I filled in around some of these smaller spots with the crystal gold. Next, I just need to finish this little area off. I'm going to try to do a mixture of black and amethyst. I think I'll put the amethyst down first and then put some black on top of it. I'm just trying to keep from mixing these two. And I can't really get enough on the palette to get enough to mix up, so I'm just going to do it this way. Let's see how that goes. Just need to have it a little darker there. And also, if you look at the reference photo, on the edges, they're pretty translucent. So what I did down here was I outlined a few of these with the pearl silver, and I think I'll do that again with this one up top. I won't do all of them, just a few. You can look at the reference photo and see which ones are showing the translucent edges. Another thing you might try will be to do just a little bit of lifting. We'll see what happens, because remember we have the black paper underneath, so it may not be that effective to lift any highlights. Of course, we have the red, so if you can go, or the purple, it looks red. You can lift just a little bit and you'll see some of that purple underneath. I forgot one little detail on this top flower that I wanted to show you, and that is putting a little bit of a dark mark here, because these petals are so translucent that these show through to the top of these. They're behind this one. And so I just wanted to indicate that. You can see that a little bit on this one, that you can actually see both petals because they're a little transparent. Now I've set all three of these samples together so you can see the different effects with the different paper. Remember, this one was with regular watercolor paint and the pearlescent paint combined. Got a nice color on that. This one is really wild looking. It's on the black paper with the total pearlescent paint, and you can see the purple shows up very well on the black paper. And then this one was the 140 cold press white paper, and the only problem with this is these two particular colors here did not really show up that well, the purple and the amethyst colors. But I get really good results from all the other colors, and they look real pretty. I've worked with the oranges and the greens a little bit, and they all look real nice. And all those metallic colors, the gold, copper, bronze, they all look beautiful, and they do really well with the greeting cards. So I think you'll have fun with these. I hope you will join me for demonstration 5. I will be painting this nun's orchid on Stonehenge paper. Until then, have fun, keep on practicing, and remember that all of the reference photos, sketches, tracings, and the paintings that were demonstrated will be on Facebook page, Paint Your Garden in Watercolor, for you to download if you'd like to practice any of these. Thanks. See you next time.